Chapter 1. Rebirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Beep. The system has activated, binding is in progress. Binding what? Xia Xian thought to herself that she had read too many novels and was dreaming about it. But that was not right. Aren't I on a mission in the African grasslands? What happened next? I thought I was being chased by a pride of lions. What happened after that? Ouch, my head hurts. This system kept loading, and the noise was so loud that my head was about to explode. Xia Xian thought. Xia Xian shouted, "Shut up." Yes, master. Turning on silent mode. It was finally quiet, but the panel in front of Xia Xian kept updating all kinds of data. She suddenly felt her body light and then fell asleep comfortably. When Xia Xian opened her eyes again, the curtains were suddenly pulled open, allowing the strong sunlight to shine into the room. She blocked her eyes with her arm. How could there be someone in this world who woke me up like my mother? Xia Xian thought. Xia Xian flipped over and covered her head with the blanket. Xian, wake up. Sleepyhead, you have an appointment with the director today. Have you forgotten? Hurry up and get up. I'll go and see if the kanji is ready, the person said and patted Xia Xian's butt and pulled the blanket off her head. Xia Xian was in a daze as she listened to the conversation outside. She thought it sounded familiar. There's no room for discussion about the house. You don't have to tell me about this anymore. The woman's voice was filled with impatience. We're all family. Why can't we help? Asked the man. He looked helpless and sighed. Why didn't they think of helping out when they were taking care of mom and dad? Now that they were going to demolish the buildings and divide the houses, they finally remembered us, said the woman. Her unyielding attitude did not leave any room for negotiation. House. Demolition. Could it be? Xia Xian thought. Xia Xian suddenly sat up. She got up too quickly and felt dizzy. She held her head and looked around. This was the bedroom of her old house, where she had lived since she was young. However, ever since Xia Xian's parents passed away, she had moved out of this place. Later on, it was also directly demolished. This place that carried the family's memories disappeared without a trace. Xia Xian happily jumped out of bed barefoot and opened the door. Her parents at the dining table turned to look at their disheveled daughter. Before Gu Fan could reprimand Xia Xian for not wearing her shoes, Xia Xian rushed over and hugged Gu Fan, saying, "Mom. My dear mother." Xia Xian's action confused Gu Fan. Then, Xia Xian let go of Gu Fan and ran to hug Xia Song's neck. She said, "Dad. Dad." Xia Song patted Xia Xian's back and said, okay. Seems like your favorite is your mom, and I'm just dad to you. Gu Fan finally reacted and slapped Xia Xian's butt. Gu Gon said, "Hurry up and wash up. You're going to be late, okay?" "Yes, madam." "I'll go now," said Xia Xian. She let go of Xia Song and saluted the commander at home. Then, she hopped into the bathroom. While humming a song and turning on the tap, Xia Xian looked at herself in the mirror. She was so happy that she completely realized what was going on. She was reborn. Moreover, it was before his parents passed away. Their family of 3 was still around. But was I dreaming? Where was the system from last night? Xia Xian thought. Congratulations, master. You have successfully unlocked the beast language system. There was only a line of text in front of Xia Xian, but there was no movement. Xia Xian frowned and asked, "Why is it a mute system? Can't you make a sound?" Beep. Silent mode has been turned off. It has intelligence. Xia Xian thought. As she washed up, she recalled what had happened before. Xia Xian was indeed on a mission in the African grasslands. The zoo staff followed the television production team to Africa to film a documentary on wild animals. As expected, an accident happened. Xia Xian, the unlucky one, was chased by the pride of lions. At that time, Xia Xian's mind was thinking, what are these guys thinking? Why did they attack me for no reason? I should at least know why the lion pride suddenly chased after me. I'm not a prey, and I can't die just like that. Then, Xia Xian was pushed down by the pride of lions, and then she saw the system. Recalling the things that happened before her rebirth, Xia Xian's heart could not help but tighten. Her death was too tragic, and she died without a complete corpse. It was not a surprise that she could unlock the beast language system. However, the most important thing was Xia Xian's parents outside the door. Today was the day she met the zoo director, which was also the day of the car accident. Xia Xian was the only person who survived the car accident. Since Xia Xian had been reborn, she would not repeat the same mistake and would protect her parents. Standing at the door of the bathroom and looking at her parents, who were still arguing at the dining table, Xia Xian suddenly broke the argument between them and said, "Let's take the subway later. I'm going to be late. Plus, there's a traffic jam on the way." Xia Xian's parents turned to look at Xia Xian. Gu Fan looked at the time on her phone and asked, "Why don't you call your uncle, the director? It's fine to postpone the time. We've already made an appointment." "How can we break our promise?" said Xia Xian. After she sat down, she picked up a spoon and scooped up the congee in her bowl. It was her favorite pumpkin congee. Gu Fan and Xia Song looked at Xia Xian in surprise. They felt that their delicate child had indeed grown up. Xia Xian, who had loved animals since she was young, wanted to work in the zoo after graduating from university. Gu Fan and Xia Song had no choice but to contact their old friend, who was the director of the zoo. While waiting for the train at the subway station, Xia Xian said emotionally, "It's been a long time since we went to the zoo as a family." Xia Xian said that because she had not had her parents by her side for a long time, but when her parents heard it, it felt different. Chapter 2. Zoo. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After old Mrs. Xia had a stroke, Gu Fan and Xia Song had to work and take care of old Mrs. Xia, so they did not have time to accompany Xia Xian on a trip. Other children had parents to play with on weekends, but Xia Xian could only be alone. Sometimes, she even had to take care of her grandmother. Recently, the old house they lived in had been labeled for demolition. When Xia Xian's uncle and aunt heard that their filial piety that had disappeared for a long time suddenly came back, they immediately brought old Mrs. Xia to Xia Xian's home. However, Gu Fan and Xia Song had the time to accompany Xia Xian because of that. But in Xia Xian's previous life, this rare opportunity became a rope that claimed her life, causing Xia Xian to lose her parents. "The car is here," Xia Xian said. She did not want to think too much about the past. The source of everything was the demolition. When her job was stable, she would think of a way to prevent the demolition. When Xia Xian and her parents arrived at the zoo, they were led to the reception room by the staff. Not long after, a tall and thin middle-aged man in a suit walked in. "Hello, Uncle Lu." Xia Xian immediately greeted him politely. Lu Yuan looked at the cute and obedient Xia Xian and smiled. He said, "Time flies. Xian graduated in the blink of an eye. I still remember that Xian loved coming to the zoo when she was young. How about this? Why don't we go to the various exhibition areas first?" Xia Xian's family naturally had no objections. The four of them left the reception room and boarded the zoo's sightseeing bus. On the way, Lu Yuan teased Xia Song and Gu Fan for treating Xia Xian like a treasure. They were worried about Xia Xian like a delicate vase. It sounded almost impossible for them to let her come to the zoo and work. Gu Fan smiled and said, since Xian likes it, we will support her. Xia Xian held her mother's hand and listened to the three adults chatting while looking at the animal exhibition area. Suddenly, Xia Xian was shocked to find that when those animals made sounds, she could actually understand what the animals were saying. Could this be the change brought about by the beast language system? It was too magical. Xia Xian thought. Xia Xian heard a peacock not far away grumble impatiently, you only know how to ask people to open up my feathers. You don't even look at your own appearance. A giraffe scornfully listened to a child telling his parents that its neck was very long. It said, these short-necked creatures are obviously envious. When Xia Xian and the others passed by the lion area, Xia Xian clearly heard, these people look like delicious snacks. Xia Xian's body trembled violently. In her previous life, she believed that the lions had the same thought when she was struggling desperately before she died. Xian, what's wrong? Why did you suddenly look so pale? Are you feeling unwell? Gu Fan immediately asked with concern as she looked at Xia Xian, who had just poked her head out to look outside, and suddenly sat like an obedient baby, but her face was pale. Xia Xian forced a smile and said, I'm fine. After visiting a few major exhibition areas, the four of them went to the hotel that Xia Song had already booked for a meal. At the dining table, Lu Yuan briefed Xia Xian's job description. After that, Lu Yuan chatted with Xia Song about their school days. The more they chatted, the happier they became. It was so late when they got home that they could not catch the subway, so they could only take a taxi. When Xia Xian and her parents got into the car, Xia Song sat in the passenger seat while Xia Xian and Gu Fan sat in the back seat. Xia Xian suddenly had a bad feeling because her parents were sitting in the same seats as in her previous life. After the car started moving, Xia Song did not talk much with Gu Fan before they started arguing about the house again. Xia Xian was puzzled and wondered why it was happening. Dad, Mom, stop arguing. Xia Xian urged as her face turned pale. Her brain was spinning rapidly, thinking about what to do. No, we had to get out of the car. Xia Xian thought. Xia Xian's intuition told her that if this continued, something would definitely happen. Xia Xian grabbed Gu Fan's hand and showed a painful expression. She said, Mom, I don't feel so good. I think I'm going to throw up. Gu Fan was shocked and hurriedly asked the driver to stop the car. After the driver stopped the car, Xia Xian immediately rushed out and ran to the tree. She held the tree trunk and bent over to retch. Because Xia Xian was pretending, she naturally could not spit out anything, but to make it look real, Xia Xian still tried her best to vomit for a long time. Gu Fan patted Xia Xian's back anxiously, her heart aching, and asked worriedly, what's wrong? Could it be that there was something wrong with the meal earlier? Should we head to the hospital and have a checkup? After Xia Xian finished vomiting, she straightened her back and waved her hand. She said, it's fine. I'm fine now. I might have been a little carsick just now. Xia Song took out her phone and searched for a while. Then he said, there's a hospital nearby. Turn left and cross a street. Let's go and have a doctor look at you. We can't ignore your sickness. Xia Xian's face stiffened. She had originally refused, but in the end, her parents, who were worried about her condition, helped her to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor listened to Xia Xian's illness description and suggested that Xia Xian do a blood test. The corner of Xia Xian's mouth twitched. She was most afraid of drawing blood. But there was no other way because she pretended to be sick. Xia Xian endured the bitterness and helplessness in her heart and went to the laboratory department. She queued up and waited for the nurse to draw her blood. While waiting, Gu Fan and Xia Song stood guard beside Xia Xian. Gu Fan held Xia Xian's hand with heartache and comforted her. Xian, don't be afraid. It won't hurt that much. Just treat it as a mosquito bite. Gu Fan naturally knew that Xia Xian had been afraid of drawing blood and injections since she was young. At this moment, she was coaxing Xia Xian like she was coaxing a child. After the blood is drawn, I'll buy you some delicious food, Xia Song immediately said. The people in the queue could not help but turn to look at the three of them. When the people found out that Xia Xian, who was comforted by Gu Fan and Xia Song, was not a child but an adult who was close to 1.7 meters tall, everyone's expressions were a little complicated. A little boy who had just drawn blood looked at Xia Xian with disdain. Xia Xian wanted to cover her face. Although she was afraid of drawing blood, she was no longer a child. Mom, Dad, can you not be so exaggerated? This is so embarrassing. People would think that I'm a big baby. Xia Xian thought. Just as Xia Xian was feeling embarrassed, she suddenly noticed a man in the queue. Chapter 3. Idle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The man was very tall. He wore a cap, a black jacket, and a black mask. Although Xia Xian could not see his entire face, the man's eyes were extremely beautiful, as deep as the vast starry sky. Probably because only Gu Fan and Xia Song were talking to comfort their daughter in the queue, that person also took a casual glance. His gaze stopped on Xia Xian's family for less than a second before he looked away. Xia Xian noticed that man not only because of his superior appearance but also because Xia Xian felt that man looked familiar as if she had seen him somewhere before. When it was Xia Xian's turn to draw blood, Gu Fan and Xia Song were even more nervous than Xia Xian. When Xia Xian finished drawing blood, Gu Fan immediately heaved a sigh of relief and then looked at Xia Xian with concern and heartache. She asked, "How is it? Does it hurt?" Xia Song praised Xia Xian. Xian is so brave. She didn't even frown just now. I will buy you a custard roll as a reward later. Xia Xian had already given up at this moment. She knew that the people around her must think that she was a big baby who was doted on by her parents. She smiled and rejected Xia Song's suggestion. "No need, Dad. I don't want to eat. Let's go home." Xia Xian left the hospital with her family. She did not notice that the man in black's gaze lingered on her and her family's backs for 2 seconds. A man who was holding the hospital diagnosis report and receipt walked over. He asked, "What are you looking at? Yo, have you taken a fancy to that young lady?" Jing Mo glanced coldly at his agent, Sun Hu. Sun Hu immediately stopped smiling and changed the topic. "The doctor said that you can't continue like this. Why don't I cancel a few of your schedules and let's rest for a few months? You're not fit to work in your current state." Jing Mo did not respond. It was his turn to draw blood. He stretched out his arm and the nurse who was about to draw blood glanced at him. Her eyes widened and she almost screamed, "Jing!" Shocked, Sun Hu hurriedly made a shushing gesture. The nurse immediately covered her mouth, her face flushed red. She looked at Jing Mo with glowing eyes and said softly, I'm your fan. I've seen all your shows. You're my idol." Sun Hu smiled helplessly when he heard the nurse's incoherent expression of admiration, but he was not surprised. He had seen this situation too many times. After the blood was drawn, Jing Mo retracted his arm and said lightly, "Thank you." The young nurse was still immersed in excitement as she watched Jing Mo's receding figure. Xia Xian went home to rest for 2 days. In these 2 days, she roughly understood the impact of the beast language system on her. Xia Xian could now communicate with most animals without any obstacles, and animals generally had a good impression of her and were willing to take the initiative to approach her. The reason why it was said to be the vast majority of animals was because some animals could not communicate and had almost no intelligence. They only relied on instinct to act, such as some insects and worms. Thus, Xia Xian could not communicate with that species of animal, but she could control it, and her control could gradually become proficient. In other words, the beast language system could evolve. The only thing was Xia Xian had no idea how it would evolve. At present, it seemed that this system was still very useful to Xia Xian, but she also had some worries in her heart. As the saying goes, there is no free lunch in the world. Xia Xian had somehow bound herself to a system and obtained the benefits that the system gave her. If one day, the system wanted to ask for something from her, and the price was something that she could not afford, she had no idea what to do. Xia Xian knew that there would be no result in considering this problem now, so she did not dwell on it for the time being. Before going to work at the zoo, Xia Xian rented a house in a residential area in the West District. There were 2 rooms in the house, and Xia Xian could decide whether to rent out the other room. Xia Xian posted the information on the internet and was ready to choose her roommate. Xia Xian rented the entire house because she was worried about her roommate. If she could not find a suitable roommate for the time being, she planned to live in this house alone. It was a little expensive, but she was at ease and saved trouble. After learning that Xia Xian wanted to rent a house, Xia Xian's best friend, Zhao Nan, offered to help Xia Xian move her things. Eddie Xian, Zhang Liang, and I will help you move your things since your mom and dad have to work. His parents just happened to buy him a car last month, Zhao Nan said enthusiastically. When Xia Xian heard Zhang Liang's name, she subconsciously frowned and immediately said softly, "It's okay, I'll just contact the moving company." "Thank you, Zhao Nan. When I'm done packing, I'll invite you over." Chapter 4. Doubts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After hanging up the phone, Zhao Nan looked at Zhang Liang, who was staring at her, and said, "Xian said she doesn't need our help." The anticipation and excitement hidden in Zhang Liang's eyes instantly cooled down, and a sullen expression gradually appeared on his face. He said, "She was just being polite to you. Can't you be more enthusiastic?" Zhao Nan looked at Zhang Liang nervously. She did not understand why Zhang Liang had become so fierce in an instant. Zhao Nan explained softly, "Xian is a girl who won't change her mind once she makes a decision. Besides, I'm her best friend. She's definitely not pretending to be polite to me, so I naturally can't force her." Zhang Liang wanted to scold Zhao Nan at that moment. After hearing from Zhao Nan that Xia Xian was moving, he was excited for a long time. He thought that he could use Zhao Nan as an excuse to help Xia Xian move and meet Xia Xian again. Moreover, if Zhang Liang helped Xia Xian move this time, Xia Xian would owe him a favor and would definitely not continue to avoid him in the future. But now, Zhao Nan had messed up Zhang Liang's plan. He thought, "This brainless woman." Zhang Liang suppressed the frustration and anger in his heart and took a deep breath. Then, he said, "Did she say anything else? By the way, which neighborhood does she live in?" Zhao Nan subconsciously felt that Zhang Liang was a little strange. It did not have anything to do with him with which neighborhood Xia Xian lived in now. Seeing Zhao Nan's puzzled expression, Zhang Liang's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly explained, "Xia Xian is your best friend. In the future, when we get married, we might even invite her to be our bridesmaid. You are a careless person by nature, and Xia Xian is probably as scheming as you. You girls don't know how dangerous society is. The rental transactions in the West District are very chaotic. I'm afraid that your best friend will be cheated by a heartless agent. I can help her inquire about the security situation and average rental fees in her neighborhood." After Zhang Liang explained a lot, Zhao Nan completely dispelled the doubts in her heart. She still felt a little sweet in her heart. Her boyfriend actually considered her best friend's matter for her. He was really too considerate. Before Zhang Liang could ask again, Zhao Nan told Zhang Liang the address of Xia Xian's rented house. Xia Xian spent a day moving. After moving in, she stayed in the master bedroom of the rental house that night. Gu Fan and Xia Song were very worried about Xia Xian renting a house alone. Gu Fan almost asked for a long leave from the company to live with Xia Xian. Fortunately, Xia Xian stopped her in time. That night, Gu Fan called and chatted with Xia Xian for more than an hour. Gu Fan basically reminded Xia Xian to remember to lock the door at night, or to be careful when heating food and not to burn her hands and stuff like that. Xia Xian smiled. If it was before, she would have felt a little impatient and thought that her mother treated her as an idiot. But now, Xia Xian felt that being able to hear her mother's nagging was the happiest thing in the world. Alright, it's already past 10. Are you still going to let Xian rest? Xian still has to go to the zoo to work tomorrow, said Xia Song. Although he was also worried about Xia Xian living alone, he was still much more rational than Gu Fan and urged Gu Fan to stop nagging. Xia Xian also hurriedly said, Dad, Mom, don't worry. I live very near to the zoo, and the security in the neighborhood is also very good. When the holidays come next week, I'll bring you over to have a look. Gu Fan finally hung up the phone reluctantly. The bedroom fell silent. Xia Xian took out a stick of incense from the box and lit it. This was a habit she had in her previous life. After her rebirth, she bought some from the internet. In Xia Xian's previous life, her parents died because they wanted to send Xia Xian to the zoo. This incident made Xia Xian's grandmother almost hate Xia Xian to death and was determined not to see Xia Xian again. Xia Xian also hated herself very much. She could not sleep every night. In just over a month, she had lost more than 10 kilograms. Later, Xia Xian's good friends were afraid that she would commit suicide, so they took her to see a psychiatrist. After going through some psychotherapy, Xia Xian slowly walked out of the shadow of her life, but she was not as lively as before. There was no longer a bright smile on her face, and she suffered from insomnia. She had to light incense every night to sleep a little more comfortably. Smelling the warm and delicate fragrance, Xia Xian's body and mind relaxed, and she fell asleep with a smile on her face. Xia Xian knew she was no longer alone. Her loved ones were still by her side. After a night without dreams, Xia Xian woke up refreshed the next day. After washing up, she rushed to the zoo. When Xia Xian arrived at the zoo, Lu Yuan had already arranged for the staff to take Xia Xian through the entry procedures. Then, Lu Yuan gave Xia Xian a work pass and assigned her a workplace for the probation period. Chapter 5. First day of work. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Newcomers who came to work in the zoo usually had a probation period, and the probation period was different for different positions. During the probation period, the newcomer had to be familiar with the various matters with the current staff. If the newcomer felt that it was hard during this period, he could give up. If he could persist, he could sign a formal labor contract with the zoo. Xia Xian did not know if she was lucky, but Xia Xian was assigned to the panda exhibit. The panda exhibit was one of the largest exhibits in the zoo. In addition, 3 pandas in the zoo had just given birth. The current staff of the panda exhibit was busy taking care of the cubs, so there was not enough manpower to take care of the other pandas. 10 minutes later, Xia Xian arrived at the 3rd exhibition area of the panda exhibit. Li Li, a senior employee in the 3rd exhibition area, took Xia Xian around the exhibition area while introducing her to today's work tasks. There are a total of 3 pandas in our exhibition area, Bao, Dodo, and Pippi. Dodo is the most popular and is a famous panda on the internet. Therefore, when Dodo goes to the outer area, there will be a lot of tourists. You have to pay attention to whether the behavior of the tourists will affect Dodo. Pippi is also very popular. It is Dodo's younger brother. This cub is the naughtiest panda in the entire panda exhibit. It usually likes to climb the wall and has even climbed out before. Mr. Lu raised the wall a few days ago, but Pippi has been trying to climb over the wall for the past few days. As for Bao, it's the youngest. Its two hind legs are disabled and it can't stand up. It usually likes to hide in a corner and is very obedient. As long as you give it a ball, it can play in the corner for a day, said Lily. At the mention of Bao, Lily revealed a distressed expression. She sighed and continued, I've written everything else down on the paper. Also, the feeding time is from 8 to 9 in the morning and 2 to 3 in the afternoon. Bao can't move easily, so he needs to be fed alone. Xia Xian remembered every word Lily said and nodded seriously. Alright, you can go over after you change into your work clothes. After Lily finished speaking, Xia Xian was instantly extremely excited and was about to turn around and leave. Lily stopped her and added, wait a minute. When the zoo opens, many tourists will take photos or videos. If you're not used to it, put on a mask and a hat. Xia Xian nodded. Seeing that Lily seemed to be thinking seriously, she asked cautiously, Ms. Li, is there anything else I should pay attention to? The man who brought Xia Xian to the panda exhibit said that Lily's memory was not particularly good and she might forget something important. Lily smiled gently and said, no, you can go. Only then did Xia Xian leave with relief in her heart. After changing her clothes, and putting on her hat and mask, Xia Xian went to the inner court. The staff living in the panda exhibit had already brought the pandas to the outer court. At this moment, there were no pandas in the inner court. However, Xia Xian's work today started from the inside. She picked up the cleaning tools and went to the room where the giant pandas lived. Xia Xian saw a pile of messy mixtures on the ground, including bamboo leaves and a lot of feces left by the giant pandas. The first thing Xia Xian had to do today was to clean up the pandas' excrement. Lu Yuan told Xia Song that Xia Xian did not come to the panda exhibit to enjoy herself and play with the animals every day. She would definitely suffer a lot when she came here to work. He wanted Xia Xian to be mentally prepared. If she felt that it was hard, she could give up as soon as possible. Obviously, Lu Yuan underestimated Xia Xian's love for animals. Especially now that the animal she was in charge of was the giant pandas. Not many people in the country had the chance to hold a panda. Xia Xian now had the opportunity to hug a panda casually. So, there was nothing wrong with shoveling a panda's poop. She just treated them as raising a big cat. Xia Xian cleaned up the pile of the mixture and poured it into the bag. Then, she weighed the bag and recorded the weight of each bag of feces. This was because the feces of giant pandas could indicate their health status to a certain extent. If a panda had too little feces, the caretaker would have to consider giving the panda extra food. After Xia Xian had finished cleaning up the feces, the sun had completely risen outside. When she listened carefully, she seemed to hear the noise of the crowd in the distance. Then, she knew the zoo must have begun to receive tourists. Chapter 6. Panda, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Hurry up, or we'll be squeezed to the back and won't be able to see Dodo. A girl with red hair urged as she tugged at her boyfriend's sleeve in the crowd. It's still early, maybe the pandas are still sleeping, or maybe they're like me, didn't sleep well and watched to catch up on sleep. The boy, who had come to the zoo early in the morning because his girlfriend loved pandas, yawned and spoke lazily. The red-haired girl kicked her boyfriend on the buttock and said, "You lazy bum. If you delay me from seeing Dodo, I'll make sure to deal with you when we get back." The two of them squeezed through the crowd and finally came to the railing, where they could see the scenery outside the enclosure. Not far away was a dense bamboo forest, a shallow pond, and several large wooden climbing structures. Why isn't Dodo out yet? The red-haired girl anxiously waited, her camera ready to capture every moment. Here they come. The caretaker is coming out to feed the pandas with apples, Dodo and Pippi will be here soon. Someone nearby quickly spotted the new development and exclaimed with joy. The red-haired girl's eyes lit up. As a panda enthusiast, she knew that pandas did not always appear in front of the visitors, but whenever the caretaker came out to feed them, they would definitely come. Wow, is this keeper new? She seems like a young lady. As the pandas had not appeared yet, the visitors directed their attention toward the caretaker. Really? I think this young lady is beautiful. A beautiful caretaker with adorable pandas, that's a great combination. I'm sure many people would love to watch videos of this. The person speaking took out his phone and started filming the new caretaker in the enclosure. At that moment, on the pathway below the fence, Xia Xian held a bamboo pole in her left hand and a basin in her right hand, filled with cut apples. Xia Xian looked up and could see the dense crowd behind the railing. She thought, it seemed that the zoo's popularity was increasing. When I came here 2 years ago, there weren't as many people. But what puzzled Xia Xian was why the visitors were pointing their cameras and phone cameras at her instead of the pandas. Then she only realized that the pandas had not come out yet. She thought the visitors must be waiting to capture the moment when the pandas come to her to eat the apples. Xia Xian realized that she should not keep the enthusiastic visitors waiting for long. Following Li Li's instructions, Xia Xian shouted in a slightly local accent, "Dodo, Pippi. It's time to eat apples. Come here quickly." Xia Xian repeated her call several times until she finally saw 2 pandas walking towards her from the depths of the bamboo forest. One of them was tall and robust, walking swiftly, while the other was short and plump, with a slow and adorable gait. Its 4 short legs moved slowly, melting everyone's hearts. The taller panda was Pippi, the little tyrant of the panda exhibit, while Dodo, the most popular panda in the past 2 years. Xia Xian felt her excitement rise as she saw the furry pandas. Before, when she visited the zoo, she could only watch the pandas from behind the fence like the other visitors, but now she had become their caretaker. As the netizen would say, she had become the mommy of Pippi, Dodo, and Bao, the 3 pandas. Xia Xian, who had not had children of her own, was overflowing with motherly love. At the same time, her unique beast language system activated its passive function, automatically translating the conversations between the 2 pandas as they approached Xia Xian. "Who is that? Shorty, do you know her?" Pippi asked. "You big dummy, speak more politely to me." "I'm your older sister," said Dodo. Xia Xian could not help but smile. She had heard that Pippi and Dodo were a pair of pandas with noticeable size differences, but she did not expect Pippi to be so rude to its older sister. When Pippi and Dodo reached her, Xia Xian picked up a small apple from the basin and fixed it on the top of the bamboo pole. Then she raised the bamboo pole and let the apple sway on the heads of Pippi and Dodo. Pippi and Dodo both stood on their tiptoes to bite the apple. Dodo's 2 short hind legs could barely stand properly. He swayed and looked extremely cute, causing the surrounding audience to let out excited cries. A child held by an adult on the railing shouted excitedly, "Panda fishing, ha ha ha." Chapter 7. Favorable Impressions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xia Xian heard that remark and could not help but feel like she was fishing for pandas, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. After Pippi and Dodo finished eating the apples, Xia Xian walked up and patted their heads. Xia Xian could cross out petting a panda in her bucket list now. Xia Xian wore a satisfied smile. After being patted by Xia Xian, Pippi and Dodo didn't immediately turn and leave. Pippi suddenly hugged Xia Xian's thigh and rubbed against it, while Dodo raised her head and shook her panda head as if inviting Xia Xian to pet her again. Witnessing this scene, the surrounding spectators were astonished. Are Pippi and Dodo in a good mood today? Why are they so affectionate? Usually, they finish eating and go back to sleep without wasting a minute. Could it be that pandas also like beautiful girls? Look, Dodo seems to be smiling. It's so cute. The visitors, who rarely saw such intimate interaction between giant pandas and the caretakers, hurriedly took photos and recorded videos. At that moment, Xia Xian looked at the two pandas that were pestering her and felt a little helpless. She thought it must be the beast language system activated its passive function again. As long as animals approached her, they would have a good impression of her and would be willing to take the initiative to approach her. Xia Xian still had to feed Bao an apple later. Now that she was entangled by the two pandas, she could only pet the panda's head with one hand. After 5 or 6 minutes, she forced the two pandas back into the bamboo forest. The two pandas turned and looked at Xia Xian reluctantly. At that moment, the two security personnel patrolling by the railing observed this scene and found it quite intriguing. One of them said, "Pippi and Dodo are close to the caretaker, but they don't usually show such exaggerated behavior. They only get excited like this when they see the apples. It seems like the girl is a new caretaker. I heard she got in through connections. I thought she would just loaf around and not do anything, but I never expected Pippi and Dodo to like her so much." On the other side, the red-haired girl, who was enthusiastically capturing videos and photos, watched Pippi and Dodo disappear into the bamboo forest and contentedly closed her mirrorless camera. "We are really lucky this time. Pippi and Dodo stayed in the outdoor area longer than usual, and we even saw them being affectionate with the caretaker," said the red-haired girl. The red-haired girl's boyfriend smiled and asked, "Maybe pandas like pretty girls too?" The red-haired girl rolled her eyes and said, "Do you think pandas are as shallow as you?" However, after her sarcastic remark, the red-haired girl could not help but open her camera and play back the recorded video. After watching it for a while, she sighed, "But that new caretaker does seem quite beautiful. Even though she's wearing a mask, you can tell she's a beauty just by looking at her eyes." Compared to men, women's appreciation of other women was genuine and pure. At that moment, the red-haired girl was filled with curiosity about the new caretaker. In addition, her favorite pandas seemed to have a strong liking for the new caretaker, so she looked at Xia Xian with a friendly gaze. After Pippi and Dodo returned to the bamboo forest, many of the onlooking visitors dispersed and went to see other pandas in different enclosures or visit other animal enclosures. Only a few people noticed Bao hiding in the corner under the railing. When Xia Xian approached Bao, she saw its two front paws pushing a slightly dirty ball, which seemed to be losing air. Lili had mentioned that the ball was Bao's favorite, and it had a strong emotional attachment to it. That was why the staff did not replace it with a new ball. Xia Xian walked towards Bao, and perhaps she was a stranger, Bao seemed a bit flustered upon noticing her. It tried to move with its front paws toward the corner while holding on to its ball, appearing nervous and unsure of what to do. While feeding Pippi and Dodo earlier, Xia Xian could hear them happily conversing. They were two happy pandas loved by the caretakers and visitors, lively and joyful. But Bao was completely different from them. Bao was very quiet, appearing timid and submissive. As if all it had was that dirty and worn-out ball. They were all pandas, but their destinies were completely different. Xia Xian felt a twinge in her nose. She slowed her steps and slowly crouched down. With a small apple in her hand, she used her gentlest voice to reassure the anxious Bao, "Bao, I'm the new caretaker, and I'm glad to meet you. Don't be afraid, I've come to bring you a small apple." Chapter 8. Trending topic. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xia Xian did not use the beast language system, so Bao could not fully understand her words, but it seemed to sense Xia Xian's goodwill and became less nervous. 2 minutes later, Bao finally bit into the apple in Xia Xian's palm. After finishing the apple, it quickly hugged its ball and retreated into the corner. When night fell, Xia Xian finished her day's work, changed out of her uniform, and went to the staff cafeteria for dinner with her colleagues from the various enclosures. Suddenly, a colleague who was watching videos while eating exclaimed, "Xian, you're on the trending." Trending. Xia Xian pondered. She did not understand what her colleague meant. Quick, take a look. It's this one. The colleague held the phone in front of Xia Xian. Finally, Xia Xian saw it. On the cultural and entertainment trending list, there was a hot topic titled Beautiful Caretaker and Pandas, currently ranking second with high popularity. Xia Xian was startled. It was surprising enough for an ordinary person to trend once in their lifetime, but now she found herself in the second spot on the trending list. On the discussion platform for the trending topic, netizens were actively commenting. Wow, is the new caretaker at the Capital Zoo so good? Looking. I think she could become a female star in the entertainment industry. Yes, although she wears a mask, it can't hide her beauty. And she's so gentle. Pippi and Dodo, make way for me. I also want the beautiful caretaker to pet my head. Did you all see? Pippi and Dodo stayed in the outdoor area for a long time this time. They seem to really like the beautiful caretaker. Indeed, pandas also appreciate the beauty. I hope I can see the interaction between the beautiful caretaker and Pippi and Dodo when I visit the Capital Zoo next time. I'm going to buy tickets now. Don't bother. I just tried to book tickets, but they're sold out for today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. You guys are horrible. Xia Xian scrolled through the comments, completely unaware that netizens were paying such close attention to her. She felt somewhat uneasy. Is this what it feels like to suddenly go viral? Xia Xian pondered. Seeing Xia Xian's discomfort, her colleague hurriedly reassured her, don't worry too much. Because Pippi and Dodo hold a high position in the hearts of the nation, their caretakers have often trended alongside them before. However, the previous caretakers did not generate such intense discussion and enthusiasm. Being a beautiful woman is indeed different. Another colleague chimed in, if it weren't for Jing Mo taking the top spot on the trending list, I think this time Xian would have had a good chance of claiming the first place with Pippi and Dodo. Then Xian might even be able to ask Mr. Liu for a bonus. Haha, being on the trending list is equivalent to giving our zoo nationwide advertising. Jing Mo, Xia Xian felt that the name sounded familiar. She clicked on the title occupying the first place on the trending list and saw several brand endorsement photos. In the photo, Jing Mo was wearing a simple white shirt, with the top two buttons undone, revealing a glimpse of his delicate collarbones and a small portion of his chest. The cold light illuminated his well-defined features, making his temperament appear even more aloof and noble. His face could withstand every frame captured by a high-definition camera from any angle. Xia Xian stared blankly at Jing Mo's enchanting eyes that could captivate thousands of young girls, feeling a sense of familiarity. Xia Xian's colleague looked over, admiring Jing Mo's stunning beauty, and sighed, just a regular endorsement ad, yet it effortlessly soared to the top of the trending list. He truly deserves the title of the top male god in the entertainment industry today. His face is simply the embodiment of love. Listening to her colleague's admiration, Xia Xian looked at the photo of the man with extraordinary looks and suddenly remembered where she had seen him before. Those beautiful eyes. It was the man from the hospital that day. Xia Xian came to a realization. Xia Xian did not expect that after her rebirth, she would coincidentally encounter a top celebrity at the hospital. However, since she did not idolize celebrities in her previous life, she did not recognize Jing Mo at the time. Knowing that the man at the hospital was Jing Mo, Xia Xian became even more puzzled. If that man was a big celebrity, I shouldn't have had any contact with him. So why did I feel a sense of familiarity when I saw Jing Mo at the hospital? That feeling was as if Jing Mo was someone important to her, but she could not remember who he was. After finishing dinner, Xia Xian returned home. As soon as she changed into her slippers and turned on her phone, she received texts from her friend Zhao Nan and several classmates. Xian, is that person on the trending list you? I can tell it's you. You became an internet sensation on your first day of work at the zoo. Amazing. Chapter 9. Interface. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xia Xin replied to Zhao Nan, I just rode on the popularity of Pippi and Dodo. They are the real superstars. I'm just their caretaker. Most of Xia Xin's classmates recognized Xia Xin after seeing the trending topic and messaged her to ask. Xia Xin replied to each of them and then messaged her parents to let them know she was well before getting ready for bed. For most people, becoming an internet sensation overnight would make it difficult to fall asleep out of excitement, but Xia Xin did not really care about it. She saw herself as an ordinary person. Of course, Xia Xin was not entirely ordinary. She was someone who had died once and now possessed a peculiar beast language system. Xia Xin could not control the passive effects of the beast language system, but she had not actively used its communication function today. On one hand, Xia Xin still could not determine whether the system was good or bad. On the other hand, she felt that she could handle her job as a caretaker well enough on her own, and she did not need to rely on the beast language system for now. After experiencing a rebirth, Xia Xin hoped for a peaceful life. She thought it would be better not to casually use the beast language system that seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Just as Xia Xin closed her eyes, ready to fall asleep while enjoying the elegant scent of incense, a page suddenly popped up in her mind. Host. Xia Xin age. 21 stamina. 65 appearance. 78 charisma. 75. Beast mastery. Beginner, what's this? Xia Xin pondered as her sleepiness vanished, and she almost sat up in bed. Soon, another option page appeared. Today's accumulated animal affinity. 200 points. Today's accumulated human affinity. 3,000 points. Do you wish to increase your basic attributes? Do you wish to exchange items in the shop? Affinity. The animal affinity should have been accumulated through my interactions with the pandas, while human affinity was likely due to the public's interest in me after I trended or because I was Pippi and Dodo's caretaker, which led visitors and netizens to develop a favorable impression of me. Xia Xin thought. After hesitating for a moment, Xia Xin chose the option to increase her basic attributes. The page switched, showing that 200 points could be exchanged for 2 basic attribute points, which could be added to any of the basic attributes. Where should I add it? Xia Xin hesitated for a moment between her stamina and her beast mastery. Her stamina points were the lowest right now, probably due to her poor physique since she was young. As for beast mastery, Xia Xin felt that this ability might be useful in the future. It was an ability worth cultivating. However, Xia Xin was not sure how many attribute points were needed for the upgrade of that ability at the moment. In the end, Xia Xin chose to strengthen her stamina. After all, physical health was the most important. Next, Xia Xin selected the exchange items in the shop option. A giant screen similar to a shopping page appeared in Xia Xin's consciousness, and she browsed through it briefly. Charming elixir. 100,000 points misfortune talisman. 200,000 points basic divination talisman. 30,000 points master chef's recipe. 400,000 points. The shop had a wide variety of items, and everything was available, but the prices were exorbitant. Xia Xin had initially thought that the 3,000 affinity points she received from visitors and netizens today were already a lot, but she did not expect that she could not even afford the cheapest item in the shop. Forget it, I could look at it later. Besides, I don't really need any of these items right now. Xia Xin thought. Xia Xin exited the selection page. Although she did not buy anything, she felt much more at ease. From what she could see, the system seemed to require an equivalent exchange. Equivalent exchange meant the system was conducting transactions with Xia Xin. If the system unconditionally gave her a bunch of things without asking for anything in return, that would make her uneasy. In the morning, Xia Xin turned off her alarm clock, got up from bed, made a simple omelette for herself, and then arrived at the zoo without putting on any makeup. Xian, you're here so early. Li greeted Xia Xian when she saw her. Xia Xian smiled and said, you're even earlier. The weather is nice today, so there should be a lot of visitors. I guess today's visitors might be overwhelming since you trended yesterday. Well done, Xian. I didn't expect Pippi and Dodo to like you so much, but now I can rest assured, said Li. I never expected it to go viral, but if it helps bring more visitors to the zoo, then it's beneficial, said Xia Xian. After chatting with Li, Xia Xian changed into her work uniform and began a busy day. Chapter 10. A Dog. You are listening at novelfull.audio. During the lunch break, Xia Xian and her colleagues went to a newly opened buffet restaurant near the zoo for lunch. Xia Xian ate relatively quickly, and her appetite was not large, so she finished her meal quickly. As she watched her colleagues still eating, Xia Xian played with her phone while waiting for them. While boredly scrolling through videos, Xia Xian suddenly saw a video that featured herself. A blogger named Happy Potato posted a video taken at the zoo yesterday. In the video, Pippi and Dodo were playfully interacting with Xia Xian. Xia Xian was caressing one panda with one hand, showcasing the harmony and affection between humans and animals. The video had already received over 700,000 likes, and there were many comments. As one of the main characters in the video, Xia Xian naturally sparked a new round of discussions among netizens. Once again, Xia Xian felt that she had truly become famous. If the beast language system calculated human affinity points by resetting them daily, would I receive a significant amount of affinity points today? If so, I might be able to purchase something relatively cheap from the shop in a dozen days, thanks to my sudden popularity. Xia Xian thought. While Xia Xian was lost in thought, she suddenly heard someone impatiently shouting, "Damn dog, get lost. If you don't leave, I'll catch you and make you into a hot pot meat slice." Xia Xian looked over and saw a restaurant staff member shooing away a small dog outside the restaurant. The dog was dirty, with tangled fur, and could barely be recognized as a white dog. It was of medium size. It was currently summer, and the outside temperature was high, while the restaurant had air conditioning. When customers entered or exited, some cool air would escape, making the entrance cooler. The dog was likely seeking relief from the heat by staying near the entrance. However, the restaurant staff clearly did not welcome it. After all, a dirty dog lying by the entrance was not a pleasant sight and could affect the restaurant's business. Since Xia Xian had loved small animals since she was young, she felt sorry for the dog. At that moment, her colleagues had finished their meals, so Xia Xian walked to the entrance, getting closer to the dog. After hesitating for a moment, Xia Xian used the beast language system to communicate with the dog, saying, "Do you want to come with me? The place where I work has air conditioning, it's cool, and I can find some food for you." The dog stared at Xia Xian with round eyes, taking a long time to realize why a human could communicate with it. The dog was actually afraid of humans, but Xia Xian did not make it feel scared at all. The dog opened its mouth, emitting a hoarse sound from its throat. Afraid that Xia Xian could not understand, it approached her and wagged its tail, indicating that it was willing to go with her. Xia Xian was taken aback and thought, it could not bark. Xia Xian felt something was off. She walked up to the dog, relying on the buff from the beast language system that attracted animal affinity, and daringly opened the dog's mouth. To her shock, Xia Xian discovered that the dog had no tongue. She was so angry that her body trembled. Who did this? How could someone be so malicious in this world? Xia Xian thought angrily. Looking at the dirty dog in front of her, Xia Xian felt her heartache and tears almost welled up in her eyes. "What are you doing, Xian?" a male colleague asked in confusion as he saw Xia Xian squatting on the ground, holding a dirty dog. Xia Xian looked at her colleague, Tang Hai, and said, Mr. Tang, can I bring this dog into the zoo? I'll take it home after work, so it won't cause any trouble for the zoo. Do you want to keep it? Tang Hai was momentarily surprised but advised, Xian, I know you're kind-hearted, but there are so many stray cats and dogs in this world. You can't help them all. Well, bring it along. I can get some food for it from the nearby enclosure. Thank you, Mr. Tang. Xia Xian gratefully replied, then turned to the dog, saying, let's go. You'll have something to eat soon. At the zoo, Tang Hai brought some food, and Xia Xian took out a stainless steel bowl and placed the food inside. Since the dog had no tongue and had several teeth missing, it was extremely difficult for it to eat. Xia Xian watched the dog struggle and clumsily stuff the food into its mouth, then swallow it, feeling a mixture of sadness and anger in her heart.